Dirshu Mishnah Berurah, Simin Ches, Sif Yud Gimel and Yudalid. We already began Yud Gimel yesterday, so we're going to pick it up and discussing the amount of time that you have to make two brachas in your Talis Katan and your Talis Gadol. The beginning of the Sif taught us that if you make a bracha in your Talis Katan and there's a large hefsek, you're going to have to make another bracha on your Talis Gadol. We had mentioned that if it will not be a large hefsek, when all the dust settles, it seems one should not make two brachas. There are those that disagree and say there is makom to be makel if you're going to be talking, if you're going to have some time. But again, I guess as we mentioned yesterday, the psak halacha should be that if you're getting up, getting dressed, and going straight to shul and putting on your talis, you only make one bracha on the Talis Gadol. If you're going to have a sizable amount of time, you're eating, you shouldn't be eating, excuse me, you're learning, you have a shear, you're taking care of the kids, then you would make two brachas. Let's continue. The Mechaber says, if you die in your house, if it's in your mind, mitzchila, in the beginning, gamal Talis Gadol, you're thinking that you're going to put it on, and you were not mafsik, and you do not have to make a new bracha. And again, this just adds to the compounds to the issue. Here he says, in one house, that's when you don't make a separate bracha. Let's continue straight into the Mishnah Berurah. The Mishnah Berurah is over here on Sif Yud Gimel. I think we have one left on the bottom over here. Sif Katan Lamed Hey B'Toich Beisai, says the Mishnah Berurah, V'afilu im Talis Katan, even if the Talis Katan Lovash B'Cheder Zev Talis Katan B'Cheder Acher, you're in different rooms, which in the dinim of Hefsek, sometimes we hold that when you go from room A to room B, if you don't have das, it's going to be a problem. The Shini Makam Lo Yavi Mecheder Cheder, says Mishnah Berurah, it's not a problem. You're thinking about it. We'll get there. One word, which Dirshu over here points out, that's not so simple to understand. And now let's go straight into Sif Yudal. It says the Mechaber, in Pashat Talis, if you think of it, you're going to put it right back on right away. You got to make a new bracha when you put back on your talis. Says the Rama, don't make a new bracha. Take your talis, you go to the bathroom, you come back on, no new bracha. When you're wearing your Talis Katan, so now at some level you still have a kiyum of the mitzvah. Now you don't make a new bracha. So if you're wearing your Talis Katan, you put on your Talis Katan for davening, you take it off to use the bathroom, etc. You do not make a new bracha. And now let's learn the parameters of this day. And then from here we're going to foray into some very, very important halachas which Dirshu is going to quote us. So it says the Mishnah Berurah Sif Katan Lamed Vav Sarich Lavarich. I feel Nishal of Talis Katan. The first opinion holds, even if you're wearing a Talis Katan, you have to make a new bracha. But I feel take Nizati right away. And the first sheet is very machmir or make whichever way you want to look at it. Whenever it comes to bracha batala, it's not so simple. But says the first sheet, right away you put it on, you have to make a new bracha. Why? The taking off is the hefsek. Continues Mishnah Berurah quoting the Ramah, which of course is the psak halacha for us Ashkenazim. The first sheet holds, even if you're in the Ramah, even if you're not wearing a Talis Katan. But what's the reason of the Ramah? You have das, you're about to put it right back on. And that's what you did. Loi have a pshita hefsek, taking off is not a hefsek. Va'afilim shita mekayim meantime you move places. Kegoyin shapashal so the basic the kanes the basic he say. You went to the bathroom and you came out. It's not a hefsek, even if you're not wearing a Talis Katan. Loi have a shini makom is a hefsek. Kimi shachazer v'lavish I say Talis atzmai, since you went back to put back on the same talis. And this is not comparable to that which the Paiskim say, I'm sure many people are wondering, I said you go to the bathroom and come back. You don't make a new bracha, but we know by tefillin that's not so simple. Why? The shiny awesome, keeping the base akise also bit tefillin, we're going to get there. Generally, the psak is using the kitab Ketanim and Gedolim, if you go to urinate, you don't make a new bracha because you ostensibly and theoretically could urinate in your tefillin. If you go for a Gedolim to defecate, then yes, you make a new bracha in your tefillin. But it explains the Mishnah Berurah, talis is different. Mashenkin betalis the Medina Eina Yasser. You really put your towels into the bathroom. Ratinu Nachal Nasas King. We don't do that. Al Kain Lav Yafsik Al Dezeh. It's not a hafsik. V'dan you should know, says Mishnah Berurah. Demeis Abshita LaYadait L'Lobush Biyad. Rak Acher Zman. You took off your towels and you don't plan on putting it right back on. Even though then you change your mind and you put it right back on right away. A classical hesech hadas, because since you thought you're not going to put it back on, even if you end up putting it right back on, it's a hesech hadas. To take up the mitzvah, and this is the reason that if someone takes off his towels, someone in this past Yom Kippur told me this case, he took off his towels and he thought he had to make a new bracha, and then when he came back to shul, it was only 45 minutes later, he made a new bracha. So for him, it wasn't a problem, because since when he took it off, he did not have das, he had das to not put it back on, then it's going to be okay. But of course, what we're seeing is, you should not do that. You should know that you're allowed to put it back on, you're going to put it back on, and not make a new bracha. If when you take it off, you have das to put it right back on. And then what happens, you delay a little bit, even if you're still wearing your talis katan. And now the next Mishnah Berurah, unfortunately, I do not have the paper. I don't have the text in front of me, so we're just going to read it outside. I'm sorry, I don't have the next scan. Like the Yesh Aimrim. Ach, the Maski da Yesh Aimrim Azel loy Airi Rak. Only when you take off your talis, you take it off bistama. Again, I apologize, we don't have this text in front of us. If you're wearing your talis katan, you're still thinking about the mitzvah. You worry. Avol, says Mishnah Berurah, we know the avol's up. If your das was to put it right back on, you don't have to make a new bracha. Afilu im loy nishal of talis katan, like the first shita. Says the Mishnah Berurah, during davening you took off your talis even without any das. Al das lachsar, because you're middle of davening, of course you're going to put it back on. So if you're not thinking about anything, you take your towels, you run to the bathroom, you come back, that's called das to put it back on. The opposite case, you put away your towels. Then it's like a case that you put it on explicitly to not put it back on, and then it would, yes, require a new bracha. So some very important dirshus before we call it a day over here. First of all, Dirshu No 49 gets involved in all dinim of hefsek, has a chadas, changing rooms, etc. So one thing to point out is note number 50 over here. He says if you normally change rooms within one room, then Shlomo Zalman says that even if you didn't think about it, it's fine, because that's what you normally do. You move around when you eat, and this is really the stam das that many of us have. When we make brachas in our houses, we eat everywhere, and therefore it's not a problem. It continues over here. He quotes the Berurah from later on. We'll get to Simchav Hey from the Chayei Adam. Is one word really a hefsek? Continues Dirshu over here that number 52. What is the sheer? What is the amount of time that is considered hefsek? Such a critical dirshu. Note number 52. Quoting the Shulchan Aruch Harav, Nitzim Psak Halacha Shu Kama Shois. The Shulchan says, what does Kama Shois mean? 2 or 3 hours. And he says, Varan Lei brings the story with the Chazon Ish. They took off his towels for 2.5 hours and he wasn't sure. And this is the number that we always tell everyone they have to remember. The number is 3 hours. It's really 2 to 3 hours. If you're not wearing your tzitzis for 3 hours, you went to sleep in the day and you took off your tzitzis, even though we'll see, maybe you're not supposed to. You went swimming for 3 hours. You went to play ball and you took off your tzitzis, even though we'll see, you might not be supposed to. But for whatever reason, you're not wearing your tzitzis for 3 hours, boom, you have to make a new bracha when you put it on. Between 2 and 3 is a bit of a suffix, so one should try not to get involved in that. Either put them on under 2 or after 3. If it's between 2 and 3, one would not make a bracha because of the suffix brachas. So again, anytime you're changing begadim as well, you put on sports tzitzis, you make a new bracha. You go back to original tzitzis. If it's 3 hours, says the Shulchan Aruch Harav, that is when you would make a new bracha. Continues over here, edition of 53, when it comes to using the bathroom and being a hefsek, he says over here, because you can't go into the bathroom with your Tefillin. Continues Dirshu over here. It talks about it going to a bathhouse from the Bir Halacha. Okay, we don't have such bathhouse situations nowadays. And then it's important. Dirshu 54 quotes a Shevet HaLevi that quotes Lashon of Shulchan Aruch Harav that we just said, 2 to 3 hours. Kama shais, and the Shevet HaLevi asks, and he says, I don't understand. Madua hefsek shel shatayim. That why is that a hefsek? I don't understand. You know you're going to put it back on. And the Shevet HaLevi is not so happy with this, Arletzion is, but again, that is the Psak Halacha. And we're going to conclude over here, Dirshu 57, important, some people, they go to Keddushim or Asuda, they're wearing their talis, and they take off their talis, and then they put it back on. Do they make a new bracha? So we just said 2 to 3 hours. If you took off your talis for 3 hours, make a bracha. If not, not. Over here, they quote an idea, they say from the Shevet HaLevi, that you should have kavana in the morning when you make the bracha, that you don't want the bracha to work afterwards. You want the bracha only to work until you take it off. Then when you put it back on, you for sure can make a new bracha. And I guess we'll say if one remembers, that's a beautiful thing to do. But if not, like we said from the Geraz, the Shulchan Aruch Harav, the Balatanya, that is a Psak Halacha, 3 hours to make a new bracha. We'll pick it up from here. B'siyata Dishmaya.